you. That would be awesome. Okay, we are live coming from MC4326, Advanced Social Media and Analytics. We are having a little bit of technical issues this morning in the live room over the last 15 minutes, some audio issues, but hopefully we have those sorted. And if not, what are we going to do? Today, I am here with an amazing agency, Agency 3. They've been rock stars all summer long. They're here to talk to us about the nested precarities of creative labor, their energy, their personality, their synergy. You're going to love this team. My wonderful graduate instructional assistant, Matilda, who everyone loves and adores. And a very special guest, someone very close to my heart, Angie Vasquez, who actually was the GIA for this class last spring. So it's full circle moment, but who is also one of my graduate students. And she is working on some really important work in our community. I know the Hill Country floods were absolutely devastating for so many of us. And I think our hearts absolutely go out to all the families who lost loved ones or friends in that great tragedy. I'm going to pass the floor over to Angie right now so she can tell us a little bit about her project that she's running and what she's hoping that you will help her with. Welcome, Angie. It's nice to have you back.
Hi, thank you so much. It's great to be back for sure. I mean, this is very fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this show plays out. I mean, I've been watching the other one, so it's been a really great group this year. But going back to what we were talking about, the Hill Country flooding were definitely a very devastating experience. So if anyone here was affected or in the area for the Hill Country flooding, I would really appreciate your help. So I am a graduate student at Texas State University, and I'm currently conducting thesis research on how social media influences public behavior during natural disasters. So since I'm focusing on the Hill Country flooding, I'm currently collecting data on how people used social media during the floods, what platforms were relied on, how it influenced decisions, and how information spread in real time. So the purpose of this research is to improve how we communicate and respond during natural disasters in the future. If you've experienced the flooding or know anyone who has, please take a few moments to complete this very short anonymous survey. I linked it here in the comments for you guys. Even if you weren't directly affected, sharing this post helps reach the people that were. So whether it be a family member, friends, neighbors, even a coworker, if you could help get this link out, I would greatly appreciate it because your experiences matter and can help make a real difference. Not just, again, in helping me complete my thesis, though greatly appreciated, but also in improving natural disaster emergency response and crisis communication in the future. So.
Thank you so much, Angie. Angie will post that to LinkedIn. And Angie, if you don't mind sharing it with Matilda, she'll put it in our class WhatsApp chat. And another one of my grad students, Josh, saying, hi, Angie, in the chat. We're all cheering for you and looking forward to seeing this really important work that will benefit our community. Thank you so much for stopping by. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. I'm going to remove you from the floor and we're going to get started. For those of you who are just joining us, this is MC4326, Advanced Social Media and Analytics. We are here with Agency 3, who is going to knock it out of the park with their topic of nested precarities of creative labor. I absolutely adore this team. We have Lila, we have Emily, we have Ben, and we have Austin. You're going to love their energy, and I am so excited to have them here. And we have lots of people kind of welcoming you in the chat. If you are joining us, this is live on Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I keep meaning to put the links in the LinkedIn thing, but I'll do that next week. I'll try to remember. But I'm going to pass the floor over to Agency 3. I believe it's Ben who will be kicking us off. Take it away.
Hello. How are we doing, guys? I want to lead with a thought-provoking statement. Imagine if your career success or lack of success depended on a series of codes that you couldn't even see. So with that being said, hello, my name is Benjamin Neil Jaimes, and today we're going to be discussing the nested precarities of creative labor on social media. And trust me, the name is much less intimidating than it sounds. I'm sure as we elaborate, our chat will find this topic quite relevant in today's landscape. So let me break it down for you a little bit. Precarities, in short, is to have uncertainty, as we heard, all the time in our discussions. Today, we'll be diving into the different levels and characteristics of uncertainty within content creation and with creators across all platforms. We'll explore how creators are constantly chasing gold, in this case, visibility, such as views, likes, shares, comments, and how it's decided based off platform metrics and hidden norms, while also exploring how these creators aim for success while platforms are constantly changing, sometimes without even knowing or until it's too late. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce again my teammates, Lila, Emily, and Austin. Woo! Yeah, I know. So, for some structure, here's how the show will go about. First, we'll start off with our hot topic segment, where Emily will dive into the recent controversies regarding everybody's favorite mom TikToker. Next, we'll review the academic journals we studied related to the precarities of creative labor on social media, followed by some more relevant real world newsworthy examples, and then I'll end it with some recapping of everything we've got to learn about the uncertainties of being a content creator and the platforms these creators use. But before we get going, quick question. How many of you guys make TikToks? Also, another question, is anybody TikTok famous?
I post on TikTok about 3 times a day. I wouldn't say I'm TikTok famous, but I do have 13 million followers. That has taken me about 8 months to like grow to. So, but nowhere near the famous in a way. But I do create TikTok every day.
I also make TikToks. I've
Yeah,
tried.
so to most of us, it probably seems absurd that most people can make a reasonable amount of income posting social media content, but influencers you see daily are more than likely making their living by uploading short form videos on TikTok, Instagram, whatever platforms. So it is available out there for sure. But with that being said, I'm gonna hand it over to Emily, and she's gonna, introduce our hot topic for this evening.
Before we do that, Lila was trying to jump in, and I'd love you.
Oh, my fault. There we go.
No, you're good. We're having some lagging, and if people can check the private chat because I've messaged a few of you. Lila, take it away. Are you TikTok famous and I didn't know?
No. I could never. I've tried to make my own TikToks. Doesn't work too well. I think my highest view TikTok was like 3,000 views, but I am an intern for a local like nonprofit who specializes in scholarships. So I've been working on making TikToks for them, and those also don't go too viral, but it's definitely a lot of work making content, kind of planning it out, and then filming it. So I would say it's definitely interesting, and I can't wait to dive more into what content creators face when making content.
That's awesome. And this is such a good question because we're learning that Reagan is sort of TikTok famous. Reagan, you have to tell us more in the chat. I'm now really wanting to know what you're sort of TikTok famous for. Emily, maybe you can just jump in and tell us a little bit about your video that you had.
My videos are, well, I'd like say like my niches are lifestyle, and then I try to incorporate beauty and fashion into it all. So I just kind of follow, but I've also been trying to really just be creative because I found myself trying to, what we'll really go into, like trying to stick to the algorithm and just get my content pushed. I've kind of just fallen back from that, and I just kind of want to grow like a true community, even if it's not going to get like a million followers. That's okay with me. I don't really want that much, but I just find it fun, and I kind of lost that for a little bit, so I'm trying to get back to that and just kind of post like what I want to post.
Thanks, Emily. Check out the private chat. We're having some audio issues with you. Ben, this person has said to us, I saw Ben's polo shirt making video on my Explore page. I think he's famous. Wait, are you famous, Ben, and we don't even know it? What's this polo?
Okay. So I had to disconnect a little bit and dive back in. But recently, when the semester broke, I took up a kind of hobby of posting Instagram reels. And so, been kind of using that as a video diary per se. I'm not necessarily pushing things. I like to think of myself as a thought leader or a thought provoker rather than an influencer. That kind of feels like a forced action or like a coercion, influencing somebody. But yeah, so that's kind of my mindset on it. But I got a chance to interview Beto O'Rourke, who came to campus recently. I don't know if y'all saw. So I got to do that. And I've had a couple videos go viral in the 100,000s to the 30,000 range, but definitely not anywhere close to making money.
Thank you, Ben. And now we can pass it along. Thank you so much for entertaining that. It's so nice to know that some of you are doing so well on TikTok already.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go into our hot topic. Today we're going to talk about Taylor Frankie Paul and everything that's going on with her recently. If you don't know who she is, she originally blew up on TikTok as part of Mom Talk. She created the pretty much like this whole group for moms in Utah who are Mormon, and they pretty much just try to like show that you don't have to follow like rules as it like they just kind of like expanded it, and they're trying to move away from the original like traditional stuff. Mormons are like more traditional in a way. So she started this huge thing. She blew up. They ended up getting their own reality TV show called Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And from there, right when she started off, she had multiple problems. She had a domestic violence allegation, and well, not an allegation. She got arrested for domestic violence, and she also had a they call it soft swinging, pretty much where you kind of like hook up with others in your marriage. But pretty much from there, the domestic violence is where she kind of blew up again, because from this whole like she pretty much became a mega influencer, in my opinion. She currently has 6.1 million followers and is averaging on her last post over 33 million views. So she's pretty big. But from this, she got the opportunity to become the Bachelorette, which was very big. She pretty much didn't have to go through anything. They just asked her to be it. So she filmed, and then 2 days before the show comes out, her ex/baby daddy released the video from the first incident of domestic violence, and this brought a huge controversy because her little girl was in it, and she pretty much lost everything overnight, especially because the project got pulled. ABC decided to pull it, which is very big because this is a very known show. So what I really wanted to hit on here is that this already kind of shows how unpredictable things could be. Your life can change in like minutes if something came out. It's insane how quickly you can have a public disruption, and this is pretty big, but you can also have something minor. But luckily, this kind of makes her stand out because since she is so mega, she's not going to lose as much as if it was me who was on The Bachelorette. One, since she is mega, she has the money to afford a good team, where they made her sign a deal where she got pay or play deal. So pretty much she showed up, she filmed, she's going to get paid regardless of that show. If it was me, I do not have that team, I would have not gotten the same deal because I don't have that mass following behind me. And so they knew regardless she was going to bring attention to it regardless. And also in some ways, this situation has even increased her visibility. Now, compared to if it was me, I would probably lose all of my followers. I mean, it's a very big thing if that would happen. And they lose followers, opportunities, and possibly my main source of income if that was my income. Brands have pulled away from her, and they're not necessarily sticking by her side. But I believe that when she does come back, it's going to show that like she's recovering, and they're going to be like, oh, she's recovering. We're going to stick through her by her side. And like I said, her videos have gotten more views in the past 6 days than they were 3 weeks ago. I mean, they were averaged over 1 million, but now it's 33 million. And people are constantly watching and waiting for her to post. And it's kind of part of the algorithm where if you post about her, you're more likely to get your video pushed out because it is such a controversy that everyone's looking, everyone wants to talk about it. She's going to constantly still make money from this, even though it's not the best way. And that's where it's kind of scary and dark, because you can post something and it's not even like great, but people see money in it, so it's gonna get posted regardless. So I want to go into go ahead.
I kind of want to add to that too. It's like you talked about, you see her as a level of mega influencer, and it's crazy how, you can pass a certain threshold on social media. You can start off in this, maybe your highest video is 10,000 range, but you're still in a certain threshold of micro influencer. But once you pass that certain point, like the mom talks dude, they're in the millions of followers, and she's at like the pinnacle of what, you know, ideal American female beauty standards are, being the Bachelorette. And it's crazy how you can go from being that micro influencer to being on top of America. You know what I mean? But it's crazy as a PR major. Yeah, I see one of the comments that says any publicity is good publicity. That goes into the algorithm because regardless if people are liking her videos or, commenting that they love her so much, if they comment how much they hate her, it's still adding to her generated views and the metrics of what that platform has installed to generate income. So she's not losing anything. But yeah, like you said, the micro influencer is going to suffer more based off those circumstances.
Yeah, and I want to comment on what someone had said. Any publicity is good publicity. I think that's what brands really see, because views are views and views equal money. And so the more money you make, the better that people see it in that way. So I want to put a question out there. If the safety net only exists for creators who are already at the top, is the creator economy actually a fair place to work?
I would say no, 100%. I mean, these big creators are just, they can get away with anything essentially. I mean, what Taylor Frankie Paul is like, those videos that came out, that's pretty rough, I would say. And again, she's only getting bigger from this. The other mom talkers, like Jen Affleck, she has controversy too, I believe. I mean, their whole show is controversial, but she's getting her own show as well. And if like a video was to come out about her, if her show were to get canceled, she'd probably get paid as well. But as you were saying earlier, if you were to get canceled, like if somebody clipped you throwing a chair at me, you probably get canceled for that. And there's no safety net for you. You're not coming back from that.
You know what's so interesting too? It's like Duffy talks about how or I'm kind of alluding to our academic journals, but she talks about how being a creator on social media is like an entrepreneur. And in those cases where, where you're talking about like, yeah, the average person is going to be affected by what they say, but those giant big creators aren't. Duffy describes those type of jobs as entrepreneurs. So basically she's her own job, and so, or her own boss. Nobody's going to fire her, unless, ultimately the social media platform kicks her off that app, but she's really her own boss and she's an entrepreneur. It's crazy to me.
And I want to add real quick, isn't it kind of interesting how like
I also was gonna say too, it seems like for the micro creator, if they were to get into the exact same situation, every detail's exactly the same, blah blah blah, whatever, they'd have to work 5-10 times as hard just to get a piece of what these bigger people are like already getting, whether they are canceled or not, which is kind of crazy to me.
Matilda, do you want to jump in? I think we're having some lagging. We don't normally have it in our own room, but we are having that this morning. So just be patient with us. Tech challenges.
I was just gonna say, isn't it kind of funny how like when these creators become so big, like Taylor Frankie Paul has so many followers that like people are gonna love her no matter what, and like people are coming to like defend her in the comments at this point when she's being accused of domestic violence, and there's like video footage of it, and like there's like so much going on with this, and then people are still like in the comments being like, oh, it's probably not true, or like in that sense like defending her, which is kind of crazy.
Thanks, Matilda. Marina says, I agree with Lila. Big creators are able to say sorry and move on, while small creators can suffer serious consequences. But I also kind of want to know what you think. Like, do they even need to say they're sorry? Are they more likely to end up blowing up anyways? Like, I'm with the commenter who said that this is probably great publicity for them because their name is now more visible than ever before. And yes, they would have had great visibility on The Bachelorette, but only to the audience of people who watched The Bachelorette. I feel like everyone now knows who this human is, whether they watch The Bachelorette or not, which means their audience and brand recognition is now through the roof. So is this actually bad for her brand? Or is it likely that she's going to recover from this? And has this changed the structure and tenets of crisis communication when we're talking about sort of like influencers and content creators as opposed to like everyday humans who did something bad, like terrible, and now need to suffer the consequences?
I kind of want to comment on that. Oh shoot. Sorry, rephrase your question one more time. It completely slipped.
It was a very long-worded question.
Yeah, no, yeah, I had it. And one more time.
Basically, it was like, do they need to apologize? Are they held to the same standard? Or do they end up actually benefiting from this kind of controversy because it brings them into the spotlight even more?
Well, in PR, there's a thing as doubling down, rather than, you having to apologize on something that audiences deemed not right or something. And so, in PR, doubling down is honestly just as effective as saying sorry. And sometimes, like you said, people are coming to defend Taylor Frankie Paul in the comments. It's like, she could double down on it, and regardless, there is going to be people that respect that and gravitate to her because of that. And so sometimes, agencies, creators, brands, and companies don't even have to apologize because their audiences and their range is so big that people are gonna like them regardless.
I definitely agree. I think that it's crazy. It's honestly, it's just crazy how like we hold these certain people, like we just kind of decide that we hold these certain people to a certain standard where they kind of get away with almost any of it and they don't have to like apologize. And they're honestly their money, like when you think about like, creative labor and all of that, they don't have to really do much. She only posts like dancing videos, and I mean, her last one was dancing, and it's, she's, who knows how much money she made from that one video alone, compared to where that could have been my last video and that would have been my last paycheck. Some brands will completely cut you off without even recognizing you, and it's like, oh, great, now where's my income? What am I going to do? How am I going to live? And even then, it's already online, so who knows if companies are going to want to have you on their team later on, even just as a job, like in the office. That's something that most people don't think about, is that you might not even be hireable anymore because your life is on the internet now.
100. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lila. No, I want to jump in after you.
Like 100%, as they say, what's on the internet's forever. And yeah, but I also like to go back to what Megan said. She said if somebody says sorry, like people are on the fence. Yeah, the people who are on the fence about them now might accept that apology. 100%, like big influencers like Taylor Frankie Paul, they have fans who idolize them and put them on a pedestal. But then there's the people like who are just kind of watching from the side, but they may click on an apology video and watch it and be like, she's genuine about this, and go to the comments, see what the overall opinion is, and form an opinion based on what other people are thinking. And if her loyal fans are accepting that apology, it might bring more fans in to her side, essentially.
Thanks for bringing that comment forward, Lila. And Emily and Ben, I appreciate you kind of entertaining my question. I raised this question because I think the field of social media is collapsing the context of crisis communication to the point where the apology is no longer as critical as it once was. We see influencers who apologize, and then the next thing is they're actually in more hot water because of the execution of the apology, or how sincere the apology came off, or any number of other reasons. And so one thing that I have been watching pretty closely is when we see these sort of content creators or influencers getting themselves into hot water, how they try to dig themselves out of it. And one tactic is they apologize, but they do so badly and they're criticized for that apology, or they're on the other spectrum where they don't apologize at all. It doesn't seem to matter though. If you watch them long-term, 6 months, a year later, they tend to do better than they would have if there hadn't been a scandal at all, regardless of whether or not they apologize. And that's so interesting because, it's social media is fundamentally changing that playbook, I would argue, and that's just my opinion. I see you nodding, Ben. If you want to jump in, you can. But you have to unmute and then restart. It's okay. I do that all the time.
Okay, I was just gonna say I totally agree with you. I mean, the landscape's always changing. Dr. Stewart, you mentioned, we're in the wild west of technology, AI, and social media, and so everything's constantly changing. And it's very fluid right now. And I think, I don't know if it's Lila or Emily that said this, but yeah, your presence on the internet is like a digital tattoo. I heard that from one of my professors and my public relations professors, that yeah, anything you post, it's a digital tattoo, and that was kind of the phrase that they used for it. So I totally agree with you.
Yes, and something that like my parents always said, like growing up, they're like, once it's on the internet, it's on, like it's out there forever. Like you don't get to take it back. There is no take backs. Someone can screenshot, someone can share it into drives. I mean, you just don't know to the extent of what people have on you once it's out there on the internet.
I love this. I've never heard it called a digital tattoo. I've heard it called digital footprint, digital traces. But go scrape your digital tattoos
You
and make
can't.
sure there's no skeletons in your digital tattoo.
Exactly. That's a phrase and like kind of a vocab word that has been stuck into my mind. I want to give accreditation to, I think, Villagran, Professor Villagran, for that. So yeah.
Terrific phrase. I'm stealing it, and I'll give him a footnote.
Awesome. And so that kind of wraps up our topic for the hot topics. We are now going to move over to Lila for our first article.
Yeah, so I'm going to be covering the nested precarities of creative labor on social media by Brooke Aaron Duffy et al. This article was super interesting to read. She really dives into the interwoven and overlapping layers of uncertainty and unpredictability that these content creators face when trying to put themselves out there and be visible online, and they just want to succeed. And it's the three levels that Duffy talks about: level 1, market precarity; level 2, industry precarity; and level 3, platform and algorithmic precarity. They, all of them together, create a unpredictable and insecure working condition. So at the beginning of the paper, Duffy kind of almost attributes the big rise that we see today with content creation from the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. We had a lot of time in 2020 where we just weren't doing anything, and a lot of people who weren't making content before started to create content, and then creators who already put themselves out there had more time and energy to focus on making their brand bigger. So I just want to throw a quick question out there. Are there any content creators from that you remember from like 2020 who that's when they started and they're still big today? Oh no, you go ahead, Ben. No.
Oh, okay. I think me and Austin were talking about this I believe yesterday, and I think the Paul brothers are an extreme example of that. You know, starting off, they started off on Vine, which the younger generation really does know and has a sentimental connection to Vine. And so they were the faces of Vine at one point. Didn't really transition too well into other realms like musically and stuff. Although had a presence, wasn't like truly the face of that app like they were on Vine, but because of their presence on Vine, it thrusted them to such a high position that it carried on over. And now, shoot, we see it. Jake Paul and the Paul brothers are almost a face of boxing and the WWE. And Jake Paul's like made history with him being the first ever boxing match hosted live on Netflix. And so that, they're going from a small teenage high school creator to being, history making and record books. And so, yeah, that's what I think. But they've definitely maintained their longevity throughout their career and the time on the internet.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to, someone asked about Addison Rae in the chat, and I was going to bring up Addison Rae and just kind of like the beginner people like that were on TikTok that were known for dancing. So like Charlie D'Amelio, Addison Rae. Another one that I thought of was Noah Peck, but he does acting now. So I still feel like, they started off in TikTok and Musically, and it's like from that they got to get so many bigger experiences that just benefit you so much more as just from TikTok.
100%. And somebody also brought up Alex Warren, which was my example that always comes to mind, because I like the Hype House era, I believe, was a little earlier, but they were definitely like it was big in 2020. And he went on the Call Her Daddy podcast with Alex Cooper, and he talked about how they were just constantly making TikToks daily, like 5 TikToks daily, and they didn't know if they were going to make enough money to pay for the giant hype house that they were renting. And that's where the precarities lie, because how are you going to make your living if you don't know if the content you're putting out there is going to pay for your life? And now he's big, so he doesn't have to worry about that too much. I'm sure he was at the Grammys, his songs have like billions of streams, but that kind of ties back to the difference between micro influencers and mega content creators and how these precarities affect them differently. But we can transition into explaining the 3 levels of these precarities. And the first one, as I said earlier, is market precarity. And this is essentially made up of audience preference and trends. So the audience sets the precedent for what content a influencer is putting out there. If your fans don't like what you're putting out there, they can unfollow you and leave. And now you're losing out on visibility and your livelihood. And so you kind of have to tailor your content to what they want to see because they're your views. And also trends. Trends are constantly changing. I can't even remember all the trends that have happened this year on TikTok alone, but you as an influencer, they have to stay with these trends and follow them and like hop on the bandwagon before it's too late. And quick shout out to the SJMC Instagram because you guys are so good at hopping on the trends, like right when they start. Yes.
I wanted to add to that also about, kind of giving the flowers to the SJ and MC. The other day we were gonna utilize the carousel post where it shows them and their younger selves, and you did the professors and as their younger self. That trend was blowing up, and we were gonna utilize that, and we saw that it had gotten posted, and we're like, dang, they're on top of it.
You're quick with it. It's great. But yeah, this just shows that the creators essentially just can't predict what content will succeed because there's new trends every day and audience what they like how I mentioned earlier. I do this too, maybe it's not good, but where you don't know how you feel about a video, so you go to the comments to form an opinion. That can affect how people perceive you and your content and if they like it or not. But then the second level is industry precarity. So this is Duffy talks about how the creator economy is so oversaturated and so competitive. There's so many niches now on TikTok, but every single one is overcrowded. Like if you were to think of like lifestyle videos like Emily does, no offense, but Emily's probably not the first creator to come to mind. You're going to think of somebody who's big, who has probably over 1 million followers. And these smaller creators, while this is what they want to put out there, this is the content they want to create, they can't guarantee their success because they're trying to stand out in an oversaturated field. And then this is also the level in which Duffy talks about the ecology of platforms, where it's not necessarily like the physical attributes of the platform, but kind of how these platforms, like their changes evolve over time. So when Facebook came out in 2004, it was mainly used for communication. You were just communicating with your friends and your family. But now we have like Instagram and TikTok. Okay, you can still communicate, but it's a huge form of entertainment now. And these creators have had to evolve to make sure their content fits with what these platforms are being used for. And that level kind of ties into the final level, which is platforms and algorithm, like the uncertainties that lie within those. Because as we've mentioned, as Dr. Stewart, we talked about this on Monday in lecture, and we've also probably heard this from our other mass comm classes, but social media is unregulated. There's no rules on how the algorithms for these different apps should work. But we know that like there's rules to broadcasting and TV and music and stuff like that. But these creators of these apps can just change the algorithms however they please. And these creators are left trying to keep up. I've seen creators talk about like a couple of the creators in the research and the methods part of this paper talk about how when they post a TikTok, the first actions they do is they go interact with their For You page for 15 minutes because they think it's going to boost their visibility for their new post, but that's not a guarantee. And there are some changes that are visible, like the platform creators will make them aware. Like Duffy talks about how in 2016, stories. That's when stories were released on Instagram, and creators had to quickly adapt to that new feature. One of the influencers interviewed in this paper was like, I don't think I want to post stories. It seems kind of pointless. But when everybody else started posting stories, they had no choice but to post stories as well. But there's also changes that aren't talked about. That just aren't, the creators aren't made aware of them. And it's hard for these creators to follow the changes in the apps when they're not made aware about them.
That's such an interesting topic. I kind of want to add to that. In recent wake of Oracle buying TikTok, it's okay. So it's kind of like conspiracy, political agendas, but it's like it brought into question why did that company buy it in such a critical time. And influencers are noticing that some of their content is being shadow banned, and it makes you arise the question and be skeptical. Is it a hidden agenda that they want to secretly enforce, that like, and to shadow ban people who aren't you know on the same side as them, or on certain side of people? And so that was a major hidden kind of detail, that it's like, shoot, this company is now bought out, and it makes you question the motives and what they're doing behind the scenes and what they're not telling people. I don't know,
Yeah.
just wanted to put that in there.
No, thank you, 100%. Yeah. And Emily's going to get more into it, like the governance of the platforms, like the algorithms, but it is the changes in the algorithm, they reflect what, and we talked about this way back when in a couple lectures, that the algorithm kind of reflects what the content, the creators of the app perceive and feel. Like, whether it's racism or sexism or homophobia, they kind of push their beliefs into the algorithm, and they can hide content based on what they don't want to see. But as I mentioned earlier, these creative work has always been unstable, but because social media is just so vast, and you can do so much with it, it just adds to this sense of instability. And as it becomes more dominant in society, the power in these platforms are just shifting towards just more control, and these platform creators just having control and hurting the content creators on the app. And these creators are just constantly having to adapt. But in the end, it is a ever-changing market. There's just levels of unpredictability, and it's a competitive industry, and these content creators are just having to keep up and constantly adapt. But
I agree. I wanted to add, just because someone had mentioned in the comment that I think is very true. It says creating content and knowing when to post is like stocks. You never know what will happen. I think that is very true. It's such a gamble. You put in your time and your and even money. Like, it's kind of like a thing that goes around that like people say on there is, it's like the more money you put into it, the more likely you are to come out on top. So the more money you spend on these brands, you're reaching out to these brands, you're posting them, you're tagging them, and you're just hoping that they'll take a chance on you. You're gambling. And you could be gambling a whole lot of money, because people tend to look, as much as they want more realistic things, I feel like people post, these $1,000 shopping sprees, and they skyrocket a whole lot more compared to my shopping spree at Walmart. And sometimes it's not true, but it's the gamble that we have to take to just to find out.
yeah, those are really great comparisons. I like those. Were you gonna add something, Ben? I'm sorry.
I kind of wanted to address Valeria's comment. And she said, I saw that with people using words not to get shadow banned, I saw people using other words to hide what they are actually saying, so the videos don't get banned. And that's why I had that same thought, and that's why I brought up the Oracle and kind of the shadow banning, because people, it's the hidden norms that people have to adapt to, and have to use emojis or to talk about certain subjects. And for Megan's comment, we see it in the examples such as the Cuba and the Venezuela. So influencers are kind of like, it kind of hinders what they actually want to talk about because they feel like, the hidden, you know, anyway, the hidden nature of what, the people who are in charge of those platforms don't want it. And so I don't know, I just kind of wanted to bring up and address those questions regarding that.
No, that's perfect. I think that's going to flow right into Emily's article. If you want to take that away.
Yes. I was like, everyone's commenting, and I was like, wait, we haven't even talked about the article yet. I was like, hold on, we're not gonna have anything.
Don't worry, we're gonna have time. We're gonna have time. You're okay.
I was like, wait, everyone's bringing it up. I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I wrote. Okay, so the article I read was The Platform Governance at the Margins, and it's also written by Brooke Aaron Duffy and other researchers who study social media, influencers, and digital labor. What they're really interested in was the social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram. It does talk a lot about the 2020 as well. At that time, it did bring up, it's like really, it's kind of like mentioned about being like dark. It was in 2020, there was the pandemic, so everyone was talking about masks. What are they called? The shots. Why can't I think of it? Vaccinations, yes. I knew it started with the V. I was like, wait, I can't think of it. Yes, vaccinations. And where did it start from? There's so much controversy behind that, but there was also the Black Lives Matter movement, the LGBTQ. I feel like our lives were like, there was so much going on in the news all the time. And so it really talks about all the creative labor and precarity, because some of these creators were creating for fun, like the dancing that blew up at the time. And then there's creators who are also trying to push out words about these movements, and they weren't getting pushed out because it was not what the platform had seen or agreed with, even though the platforms won't post that publicly. Because like we've talked about, there is no rules or regulations. So even though they don't post it, it's not as fair as we all think. And that's what this really study showed. So before we get all into it, I want to ask, have you ever noticed that your For You page or feed seems to favor a very specific look or a type of person?
Okay, I have this idea, and I say this about everything, but you get in where you fit in. And everybody, there's so many different types of people out there that this algorithm is going to point you to a direction of where you fit in, and so it's going to find the people most like you. So obviously, I mean, to Emily's point, if your hobbies are self-care and keeping up with yourself, then then Emily's type of content and people like Emily are going to be pushed to you. But I mean, maybe Austin's a gamer, and so he's going to be pushed into that. So I mean, I don't think there's a set, shape and model of an ideal person, but I think you get in where you fit in for sure.
Yes. And while there's also it's how we create our algorithms. Of course, we totally have full in control, but still, at least on TikTok, every swipe, it is going to pop up a random video to see if you're going to stay a little bit longer, so we can start adding those. And those ones tend to always not necessarily look the same, but they kind of have the same visible precarities sometimes. They just all kind of are the same in a way. And it talks about how platforms are really boosting those posts compared to if it was a post about talking about a war or something like that. So the article really finds that the creators, especially those who don't fit what we usually see as the mainstream or most promoted image on social media, they feel like they're less visible because of our beauty standards it can include race, body type, gender identity, or just the type of content that they're posting. Because of that, they start to adjust or self-censor their posts, that's where your creativity is gone. And I kind of touched on that myself, where I felt like I was just posting to be part of the algorithm. I just wanted my post to get views, but views don't mean as much anymore. People want engagement, and I guess it really just kind of depends on why you create your platform. I rethought about my self and what I really wanted to grow from this, and I just wanted to grow a community, not necessarily just oh yeah, I love your outfit, but like it could totally be fake. Like I want just engagement and true people behind it as well, instead of just blowing up. And so some of these creators are also wanting the same, but they feel like the algorithm is shadow banning them because of the way they look or because of how what they post. And so is it really fair that their stuff is not getting posted because they don't fit our main like what we believe is true or visible, or like how people should look or do or feel? I don't think that that is fair, and neither did, and that's what it really touched into the article about how like dark it can be, is that these people are putting in extra work. They're researching all the analytics, what's going to help my video get posted, and they still are getting shadow banned because of how they look or because of how they speak. And it's like, how is that fair? It's adding another layer of pressure because it's so unpredictable. And just I feel like a lot of these creators are just really struggling. And it's sad because creating should also be fun. And you shouldn't have to follow certain rules or look a certain way just to get posted a little, like just to boost it just a little bit. I think that it's just not fair. And we've talked about how there is no regulations. And it's just sad that these platforms won't, like, we don't just have rules yet. Like, I feel like it's been around long enough that we should start making regulations a little bit. Some of their style content is over. Sorry, I totally lost my thought. I wanted to also kind of bring up the Oracle buying out TikTok just a little bit because it is very conspiracy, but people do believe that they are blocking certain content. And someone had brought up way back in the chat, it was about the Cuba. I totally had no idea about Cuba until I went like down a rabbit hole myself and found it. And then it started making me think about a lot of other examples that are going on right now. And I feel like I didn't really know about the storms in Hawaii until I also went down another rabbit hole. And so they're blocking news from us. And it's like, but social media is our main platform where we find out news. So how is it fair that they're only feeding us certain what they believe that we should know? And so that's just kind of like a small question to add in there if y'all want to touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah. Finish.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's like the whole issue with a Japanese company owning TikTok was because the government felt that we were gonna, they were gonna use it to persuade us or change opinion and take us down from the inside. And so that was the main issue of having a foreign entity owning an app that primarily Americans use. And so, yeah, like, I mean, we see it now with the polarization of both political sides and the affiliation that Oracle has with a certain party. It makes you so skeptical on, how we're not getting information that we once were a couple years ago. And I guess like the vastness of it now, it's so narrowed and I don't know, it's very tunnely, and so it's scary to see.
One thing I will say though, as someone who's been with social media since social media has been around, is this sort of like ideological and policy jumping that we see happening depending on what country the main base is for a social media platform. That has been happening since the very beginning. And I think that is something that is very much places these social media platforms in sort of the political economy, because like whether we want to see it or not, there is this sort of like fluctuation that happens. Ben?
I see it as a pendulum swing, and it's a topic that me and some buddies talk about a lot, that it is this way right now, and the pendulum swings, and then the other side corrects it, and sometimes it does bring us to this polarization state, and so everybody's gravitating to one side of the pendulum, and then years pass and then everybody's on a different side.
I guess the question I have is, shouldn't it be more neutral and objective? And how do we get there if everyone wants to regulate it into like a very particular direction? So that's kind of the question I have for you. Is like, should it be objective, and how could we ever get to that place?
Well, I think it's up to us and it's in our hands, studying topics like this, because right now we are in the Wild West and, we Gen Z and our generations, are the only generations to grow up with it. I'm sure, Dr. Stewart, you've worked with it all your years, but, when you were younger, you weren't, you didn't have an Instagram account when you're in middle school, but most of us did. And so we're growing up with it. And so we're like, I feel that we're the first generation that we have a chance to actually study it, hone it, and set the direction of path that it will go on.
I was on MySpace. But yes, your point is taken. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yes, I was gonna.
You go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You can go. You can go.
Okay. I would say I think these platforms are like, because they're so just open and vast and unregulated, they should be a place where anybody can just share news, share opinions. But because there's this bias in the algorithm, it makes it seem like, is it better for it to be regulated and eliminate just having it be so vast, or because that kind of takes away the freedom of speech? Like, you're supposed to be able to just share news and share your opinions, but when it's being hidden on its own or through the algorithm, it kind of it's like the only way to get rid of that is regulation. But as we were saying, it is tricky because you can't regulate what people are putting out there, but yet they are.
Yeah, because at that point you're regulating free speech,
Mhm.
because isn't that what social media is for? Expressing yourself in the freedom of speech. And so yeah, it gets real sensitive whenever you mention regulations, because then it's a direct infringement. But without them, we see all the effects of what could happen on social media. I do think it's an interesting topic, and yeah, I was gonna dive in a little bit more, but I'll let y'all take it away.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to bring up something that Valerie had said in the chat. It says, I've definitely seen the trend to block Oracle to get content on their For You page, they pointed out, and then they get different content. This is something that is rumored, and that's where it kind of brings back to where our unpredictableness comes, is that, these platforms aren't posting this, so we're all gambling. We're all taking a gamble as, oh yeah, this has worked for me, or I could do that and I still get the same information. It's just, and then we talk about how we're going to regulate this, and it's like, so where are we going to, there's so many, I feel like regulating is going to be so crazy because there's so many things to keep in mind. It's like, oh, we talk about freedom of speech, and then we talk about, oh, but what about this? And then you bring in money, and I just feel like it can get really messy. And I think that's why maybe we haven't really started regulating things as much just yet, at least.
Angel Martinez had a good comment. Is it normal to feel like there's too much muddy info out there? I'd rather learn about my own city or community, and somewhat that feels harder to keep up with. This is a struggle that I've come across. It feels like right now, because of the saturation of the market, it feels like we're in an echo chamber of regurgitated thought. Everybody's saying the same thing, and it's kind of hindering people forming a opinion of their own. And so they're just regurgitating anything else they hear that came on. And so I think it's, to bring it back to the point, we need to be the ones to step up. We need to be the ones to make a difference within our own direct community. That way it's a contagious, snowball effect that the younger generation is able to correct and fix itself based off all this muddy info and issues that we find.
Yeah, I very much agree. I kind of want to just go back into a little bit more of the article just to kind of wrap this up. And I want to talk about how the algorithm does play a huge role in deciding who gets to see and who doesn't get to see from certain places. A lot of these creators who aren't fitting these mainstream things, whether it's what you talk about, how you look, how anything pretty much, that is a lot of success that is not being made. And it really makes you think, is like, what is success going to look like for all of us as creators one day, and how how are we supposed to beat this algorithm if we don't know anything about it? And I know I watched so many videos about how to beat it, but they don't know either. And it's like, how is this fair for us to try and make a living off of it, or, you know, push your brand on it? And it's like, you might not even get the chance, but you just don't know, and you're going to have to gamble on your business for it. So one last question before we move on is, if an algorithm is deciding who gets seen, can social media really be considered an equal opportunity space?
Rephrase that question one more time. I'm sorry. It cut out just a second. My
Oh.
part glitched.
I said, if an algorithm is deciding who gets seen, can social media really be considered an equal opportunity space?
Well, yeah, like you said, or like Lila said, algorithms are, and coming from Dr. Stewart, algorithms are opinions embedded into code. And so somebody's back there doing that. So what is the standard definition on, if they set the criteria as only, valuable or useful content is being pushed, what is useful and who's determining that usefulness?
Yes, I agree. I think that it's just not, we just don't really, I don't think it's an equal opportunity, honestly. You just don't know, and it's not equal if people feel like, if their minority backgrounds or whatever is causing that problem, that's definitely not equal. And, and it goes back to what we've all been working towards. And you just don't know, and I think it's really unfair. And so, but this can also just bring awareness to it, and maybe we can start working towards, a better future to make this known, to start regulations. I mean, it can start, I feel like our generation is like growing with social media. So I feel like our generation will be someone to bring it forward and then continue it out. And who knows what the younger generations will do, because they, I've had kids. I mean, they grow up. My sister is one, and she literally watches YouTube all day, and it's like, oh my gosh. So who knows what they're going to believe what regulations should be. And I think that is just something that's very interesting to watch and see how it changes throughout our lifetime.
So I have a question for you, and that's that, they kind of put forward these formal and informal invisibility mechanisms in the article. And I'm curious what you think is happening most. Like is one happening more than the other, or do they all kind of happen in tandem with each other? And what type of creators are most impacted by these sort of invisibility mechanisms? Anyone on the team can answer. That's fine.
I think, to me, I think the invisible far outweighs the visible. And, yeah, TikTok or Instagram, adds little updates here and there, and that's for everybody. But I mean, there's much larger forces at play behind the scenes. And to me, yeah, I think it's a lot more invisible stuff going on.
I think the creators who get are hardest or most affected are probably like the content creators who push news stories. Like I know a big source of conversation in a couple of my mass comm classes is, where do you get your news from? And majority of the time people say social media. And how, and if we are trying, or if these creators, or sorry, if the creators of the apps are trying to hide and block these influencers who are pushing out these news stories, it's affecting the most because they're just trying to keep the general population informed.
I think that's really an interesting point when we think about like social media for news, and that it is really your generation. That is where you are going for your news, or rather it's coming to you and you're absorbing it as it does filter in and out of your feeds. And I guess there's like unequal terrain here, because in certain countries, that's not even a possibility, right? Like in Canada, for example, they passed a bill that basically said like you have to pay, like Meta would have to pay the independent news providers like the Globe and Mail or the New York Times anytime someone posted the content. So the response from the platforms has been, okay, we'll just block it. And Google has done the same thing as well. And so I think what ends up happening is we have these sort of like informational ecologies where people can't actually share important information. Like if there's a massive flood or a massive fire or there's an emergency, you can no longer share news. And so I think this actually speaks to the power that a platform potentially has with the news sharing, one. And then two, it also determines which kind of news you see. So I think there's like a lot of layered problems with that. Do you ever feel like you're only seeing certain kinds of news? Or like if you go to a news website, do you ever do this where like go to a news website to see like what's different than what's, because I have certain people who I follow on Instagram for my news. And I just love how they recap the news. And I love the snackable video content. It's like breaking news. And I always get them from the same people. I'm not going to try to like promote them right now, but you know, there's certain people who I like and I enjoy their method of giving me the news. But if I didn't go verify it, I wouldn't have known who to trust. So like, how do you go about figuring out who you're going to trust, or like what kind of news you are getting and not getting, I guess is the question, just more broadly.
I feel like I can only speak for, because we're only in our generation, but I think to our generation, legacy medias such as CNN, ABC, stuff like that, they're dying organizations to us, or I mean, at least to me, because we do get all of our, mainstream news from social media apps that are our trusted social media apps or whatever accounts we follow. And so I think legacy media is like, watching it on cable or watching it on TV, the typical programmings you're used to. I think new media is taking that over with the technology devices. And that's why I think it's so scary that like any type of infringement within the social media space, it has such a big audience that like you're kind of forcing them to go a different direction. And I think what saved me a lot was whenever I found out about the spectrum graph, and it shows where different news agencies or those legacy media sit on that graph as far as political standpoint or what side they agree with. And so I think that helps out too. But yeah, I think our generation is using straight social media to get their news, which is helpful and convenient, but it raises into question who's controlling the pushing of this information and what type of news you're getting.
I sometimes hear like, oh, legacy media is no longer objective. Do you feel that way? Do some of you feel that way? I sometimes feel like, okay, so
I can agree with
I'm not trying to like argue one way or the other.
Yeah, no, I can agree to an extent.
And like I personally would agree, like news is not as objective as like I remember it being, where they would bring on people who had all different opinions and let everyone have the same amount of speaking time, and then there'd be like a civil conversation instead of people yelling, making personal claims. But I wonder if this is like created sort of like newsfluencers, where people are that is what they do. Like they're not a broadcast journalist, they're not a traditional journalist, but they're like, that's because that's who I follow. So that's what I'm starting to see, is like they're getting around some of these regulations by kind of like, that is their stick, that is what they do, and they deliver it themselves. Do you follow any of these kind of accounts where it's like that's all they do, or how does it end up filtering in, Emily?
Yes, I do. I was thinking of one that I literally just found like a couple weeks ago. She shows like her going throughout her day, but she says like hot girls still stay in like the known with what's going on or something. And so she makes it feel like unless serious. I'm a really big worrier, so I'm not really good with news because I'll overthink everything. And so finding trustworthy news influencers is really important to me, because I don't want to get fed the like wrong information. And then I start worrying about everything else that's not even to worry about. And so, these people she creates it in like a lifestyle form, but the entire time she's talking, she's giving me exactly what's going on. What do I need to know about? What could possibly change from this information? And I like that I was able to find out where she gets her information from, at least. It was a major news place, but as long as it I feel like everyone just kind of goes off of news that they feel like they can trust. So I feel like that I can trust her with majority of things. And that's something that's really big about creating, is that you have to gain people's trust. You know, for news people, it's showing where you get your credits from. For other influencers like me, like I have to show you how I can be relatable to you. And so I think it just really depends on what relates to you and what kind of creative stuff that they like you just have to come up with on your own.
I want to jump on that real quick because how you talked about how like it can be like so easy to get news that you just like worry about constantly. And I found this one politician from Finland, and every day he shares a good news and a good recipe. So like he makes this like recipe, like he just makes like very like basic home cooked food, and then he shares like a news story from the world or from Finland or anywhere that's like really positive. So then I'm like, oh, that makes me feel a lot better when I'm like scrolling and all I see is like bad things are happening. And then he pops up and I'm like, oh, I feel a little better now. So I really appreciate the influencers that go like out of their way to like find the good things among all the kind of like sadder news that we're seeing. Which I think there's a good balance, or there needs to be a balance, obviously, of all kinds of news. But I just wanted to follow up on your thing.
It can be hard to find positivity online these days.
Well, that's the great thing about it too. It's like, I mean, to what I was saying, to get in where you fit in, you can find a news influencer that you identify with and that fits your same ideals, and receive the, you know, receive the news trustfully by somebody that you identify with, that shares your same belief and ideals. And so it's cool. Yeah, you can find somebody that you have no problem trusting because they're the same personality as you, and so it's easy to identify with, rather than, on the news, and it's one set of, the ideal person being the news broadcast and you receiving everything from that person. So I think that's the amazing thing about social media. You can find somebody who you identify with and who you trust, and then receive your news from there.
I like that, Ben, but to play, an advocate here, is it a double-edged sword? Because we do know that grouping us together creates sort of like this like-minded hive, which is like fantastic because you found your people, but it also means you're not being exposed to other viewpoints. And to kind of build off of what Angel Martinez is saying, sharing news online feels more like social influencing. So if we know that we're kind of getting ourselves into these like networks that are very similar in thought process and ideas, values, beliefs, and we're not seeing other things, and there is an element of social influencing, I guess what's the con? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like what can happen then?
So slippery, such a slippery slope, and it's scary. And that's something that I think we're still trying to find out.
Yes. Now we're going to move into one of our last segments coming over, and we're going to move it over to Austin.
All right. I am doing the compelling news story, but before I began, I wanted to ask a question. I was going to see if who here is more of an underdog type of person than, who loves more of an underdog story?
Everyone loves the underdog. Everyone wants to root for the underdog.
I think so too. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page here.
Me, I'm the guy who goes against the main established system.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure, everybody answered correctly. All right. I wanted to bring up it's more of a long-term kind of news story because this kind of happens over multiple years, but I wanted to bring up a rapper. His name is 1900 Rugrat. He initially kind of started his career on SoundCloud. SoundCloud, just for some context, if you didn't know, was more of like it was like a TikTok, but for like music artists. It's where artists used to like kind of get their start back in 2016, 2017, those like around that time. And he started off on SoundCloud, getting a little bit of traction, nothing too crazy, but he had his very small loyal fan base. And then he eventually dropped a freestyle that got him a little bit more traction, and kind of brought him not quite into the mainstream scene, but like got him that cult kind of following. But as time passed, he kind of stopped dropping like as good of music, and so he was falling into the category a lot of people call as a one-hit wonder, and really kind of fell off around late 2020, early 2021. However, most recently, he has been a consistent voice on TikTok, posting clips of him rapping in a freestyle manner, creating his biggest hit. It was the one take freestyle. This blew up really big on TikTok, probably in like 2022, maybe 2023. And that was like his first big breakout. Through that effort and today's volatility on TikTok, he has once again been catapulted and is now in the mainstream attention for the first time, really, and has gained about 1.4 million followers on TikTok and averages about 200,000 views per video. Um, I feel like a good term for his career so far would be instability. He's had a lot of career instability because he has spent his time in the spotlight to start his career off. It was pretty small, but then he made a lot of money and then he fell off and was basically forgotten for a year or two. With that came a lot of economic precarity based on his lack of viewership and listeners to his music, causing him to kind of go broke there for a second. Um, but like I said earlier, he resorted to getting on TikTok, and that ended up boosting his career again. But the big thing I saw with that part of his whole career is the platform dependency. Whereas when his music wasn't really, hitting like it used to, he had a lot of platform dependency to continue to make money and push his music out. Whether it was good or not, it became trendy to post stuff to his music and do all that. Which is why I kind of found the story to be newsworthy, just the whole process of his career where he was popular and then he kind of fell off, but he figured out a way to get on the algorithm and learn it and figure out how to blow up again through TikTok, through posting videos, and through all that random stuff. So with that whole story, I had one question I wanted to ask. It was going to be, in what ways does 1900 Rugrats' career reflect nested precarities of creative labor?
This is a good one, and it's kind of a niche topic because not too many people know or are interested in the rap genre right now. But yeah, 1900 Rugrat gained all his attention from a song posted on SoundCloud, which is now kind of a dying, realm if y'all know of SoundCloud. And there's been a lot of issues with that. But it's crazy how, he feels that insecurity on that and he feels limited, transitions to TikTok, boom, overnight celebrity. And of course, time passed and he's doing other things, not kind of staying true to that niche. The song that blew up was One Take Freestyle, and that's a specific style of rap. And so he blew up. He has his attention now. And so, but he's not staying with the niche that gained him and garnered all that success. And so throughout that time of him being like a one-hit wonder, it was on him to understand his niche, understand his audience and what people gravitated on that platform, did it again, started using that platform to do a campaign doing the same freestyles in that manner. Boom, now he's back up at top. And yeah, he is 1.5 million on TikTok. And it's great to see how you can go from nothing to something and then gain it again, in the matter of months or years.
I also wanted to bring up the fact that this has he's just one of many. This has become kind of a mold for it's like artists in general, but mainly like these rappers back from from 2016 up till 2018, 2019. I can think of at least 10 who have basically done the exact same thing he did. Started off on SoundCloud, kind of fell off a little bit, had one song blow up, fell off again for a little bit longer, and then used social media to kind of boost themselves back up. And there's a lot of really famous people who you probably listen to their music all the time that have done the same thing basically he did.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to go back to what Reagan said about his career just directly reflects his unstable income that he had to live off of. And so he was really depending on platform dependence, as he said. At first, he was depending on SoundCloud. Then, when that really died off, he took some time, but he came back and relied on TikTok. And now, well, that seems like it's stable right now. He's growing. He has over 1 million followers. Who's to say that's going to last? And that really just shows that you can't put all your eggs in one basket with content creation. And that kind of puts the bow on it, on our topic and our discussion about the nested precarities of creative labor. So if Ben, if you want to kind of give us a little quick recap.
Yeah. Thank you guys for, staying with us and, giving us so much of your time. So just like that, we've come full circle. Today, we've unpacked what it really means to navigate nested precarities or insecurities of creative labor on social media, the constant uncertainty, the invisible rules, the pressure to stay visible in a system that's always changing. From chasing engagement metrics like views, shares, and adapting to platforms that evolved without warning, it's clear that success in this space isn't just about creativity. It's about adaptability, resilience, and understanding the system working behind the scenes. But maybe the biggest takeaway is this: creators aren't just making content, they're constantly learning how to survive and succeed within environments that are unpredictable by design. So just as you scroll, like, share your next post, think about the unseen labor that goes on behind it and the uncertainty creators navigate every single day. But thank you again for joining, and shout out again to my amazing teammates for bringing this conversation to life. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and maybe question the algorithm a little bit. Yeah. Alrighty, guys.
Thank you. Well done. Someone says, Ben, can I have your autograph? I love that. I love that. Honestly, what a fabulous job. I'm so impressed with your team. I enjoyed this conversation from start to finish. This was a textbook example of how to throw a social media show. So for those who are coming up next week, which I think is influencers, this is a great, has been an outstanding show to model after. So well done to all of you. Great energy, great discussion. Just loved it the whole way through. What did you think, Matilda?
Yes, really good job. Especially, I know we had some tech issues starting off and y'all handled it super well. It's like, there's always a lot going on when we go live and stuff. So really good job handling all of that and leading into great conversations. And yeah, I love chatting with y'all. Really, really good job. Super proud. Again, good job.
For those who have done it, like, we're in the kind of the studio room for about 15 minutes before we go live, and that's usually when things go wrong. But today there was a lot going wrong, and that's always a little stressful. But I always tell teams, like, the tech, you don't control it, so it's okay.
Yeah, my right there at one point.
Yeah, we definitely had some sound issues for a bit, but
this is what.
Conversation.
Oh my, yes, we were all having different things at different times, but you know what? You did a wonderful job, and it was an outstanding conversation. So thank you so much. And thank you to our live audience for listening. We have another show going live in about 10 minutes time. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. We will see you next week. Bye, everyone.